InSHalla and Ashe, as always, blessings to you, my energetic beings. So, the Blockbuster show is on pause for the Day of the Goddess, also known as Mother's Day. So, I think it's going to be a magical day to do an invocation or a greeting to the divine feminine, that literally that beauty that resides within us, right? But today I'm exploring the centers in human design, and I work with an in body centers and out of body centers or transcendent energetic centers. So I'm actually kind of curious as to how this human design theory all plays out. So, human design actually works with 9 energy centers. I'm going to show you the graph and tune in there because I'm not real perfect at it, but I'm kind of excited. So, this is a human design graph. So, there is one manifestation center, the throat. So all the energy is being moved through the other 8 energetic centers actually towards the throat. So this gives a voice to either physically manifest or to communicate verbally. It's kind of an intelligence, like to use our voice, right? So, and we use all of these centers actually to express. But then we actually have 2 pressure centers, the head, the triangle at the top, and the crown, which is actually the root center, the little box at the bottom, the square. So the head and the crown center, or the root center together, those two, the crown and the root center, those are the 2 pressure sources that move energy towards the 3 awareness centers. So they're like guiding energy up and down in this spiraling vortex kind of flow, which is actually important. So our spleen, the solar plexus, our third eye, or the ajna, they're the pressures to know and to do, to think and to stay alive. So the head literally will ask the question, and then it actually moves the energy to our third eye. So to form an idea, to answer, to get an answer basically. And the root pressure builds up at our base and provides our adrenals to not only drive, but more importantly, to survive, giving like different momentum that, we need to actually move forward. So it's like the fuel or the gas in the car, it's sitting there waiting for the engine to start, the throttle to be pushed, put into gear, so this energy actually, it gets refined further by our spleen, our solar plexus, and our sacral centers on its way traveling to the throat, where it then gets communicated, and it also gets acted on. So it's action. It's the root center. It's like Aries energy. Aries is to act. It's our character. So then we have these awareness centers, the spleen, ajna again, which is actually, it's the third eye. So I guess I should have said that earlier, but it's our third eye. And also the solar plexus. So these are the 3 potential areas where what's awesome is it's self-consciousness and self-awareness. So it's like the merging of these 2 sides of literally the same coin. And they each focus and interpret our daily experiences on an energetic level as a body, a mind, a spirit of awareness. So the other cool things are different functions on a mechanical level, these 6. So when this energy reaches our throat, Vishuddha, the energy becomes the expression of our conscious intelligence. So it's like we have this spleen intel, which is like our survival awareness. We have our mental intel, which is our cognitive awareness. And also we have our emotional and spirit intel, which is kind of relational and social awareness. Then we have 4 motor centers, right? Or energy center motors, the root, the solar plexus, and the sacral, along with our heart. And there are specific frequencies that actually provide us with different energy resources that we actually need to manifest in different aspects of our life. So, the world would be actually pretty boring if we all had the same centers active and gates going and astrology and all that. We'd we'd probably all stare at the same word for decades and not do anything. So they all come into play and they're all important. And it keeps us in the flow on different aspects and perspectives and opinions and all the good, juicy stuff. So the root is actually the momentum to keep going. It's the emotional wave of our solar plexus. So it's the force or this momentum that literally drives us to a desire for more experiences, for, intimacy in relationships, or even for spiritual awareness. So it's kind of two sides of that coin. Where the sacral is our creative life force. It's the generative energy that actually supports us in continuing our beings, like, manifesting babies, children, etc., etc. And our heart as a motor energy center behind us, it's the I, it's the me, it's the mind. It feels fire energy, like, Leo is an I self kind of thing. I'm thinking of an Aries, they're definitely I. So it feels like fire signs to me in astrology, but it's the source of our willpower. So it literally kind of, it ensures our survival on the material world, the material plane, through different communities and this illusion of hierarchies in a way. So then we have just one identity center, which is actually curious as well. They call it the G center, which is interesting. And also it's the home of this magnetic kind of monopole. It's this poling thing. It feels like the infinity symbol when I look at it energetically. So it's in the center of the graph, or the center of the mandala, which I couldn't find a cool picture. These actually came off of, there's a human design app I use. It's on my phone. So I just screenshotted just, to give you an idea. And today, actually, those are the current transits of the day. So just organically, those are the centers that are activated just with the transits of what's happening today. And I haven't even looked at the moon, but so yeah, kind of fun there. So this one actually establishes our identity as direction, which is curious, through time and space, which is geometry. To me, it's like sacred geometry. It's the symbols of sacred geometry, whether it's a square, a triangle, circle, a spiral. They all have messages if you tune into the diagrams. So this is where our unique energy flow connects to actually the flow or the streams of life, the water, and how we're actually wired out into the galactic universe. So this magnetic kind of pull, it pulls our life like a magnet actually towards us. And so we might, say that the universe lives actually through us, the galactic universe. And the crown is actually our inspiration. So it has that triangle pointing at the top of the head. So this is the kings and the queens. They've always worn crowns. So it's a symbol of kind of attuning into like a higher way of thinking. So honestly, I think we're all kings and queens in some aspect, right? So this is like our antenna. It's our center of inspiration. It's our body's receptor, just receiving inspiration from the galactic universe or above. So this is where our truth, doubt, and even possibilities or endless possibilities can literally start to emerge. So it's unique because it's only linked to one other center, which right below it is that opposing triangle, right? Which is the mind. So this is super cool. It's where it all gets downloaded. All that inspiration gets downloaded to be processed mentally in our mind, which our mind can actually be corrupt if it's not organized, I guess is what I want to say. So the mind is actually one of our pressure centers. So the pressure gets applied literally to find the meaning of life, which everyone always starts to muse about the meaning of their life or their purpose of life or meaning or, something at one time or another. And whenever you feel strained to get your head around something, to wrap your mind around something, you're literally feeling the pressure of the crown. Or another way is you sense the urgency of the problem, searching for a solution or an answer. So this center is related to our pineal gland. So that's literally, it's the size of a pea, by the way, and it's in the middle of our brain. It's our melatonin levels. So this suggests whether we're awake or asleep in life, either inspired or maybe not so inspired. So if your crown is defined, then you just get inspired out of nowhere, really. So when the crown is defined, then the mind will be also. So the crown can only be defined if the mind is in congruency. It's because it's at the top of the head. There's only those 3 channels. So it's like this win-win having these conversations. So what that means is that you're someone who is always thinking, reviewing, searching for literally something exciting. So insights, fresh realizations, you could be of higher intellect, but just know that the intellect and intelligence aren't really on the same frequency or the same thing, by the way. Just learning how to use your intellect is really a thing. So the crown is one place where the sense of our spirit can actually be found within us. Whispering, wanting to be heard. What's curious is an undefined crown, like in the image here, it's always open to all kinds of inspiration. So anytime I talk about the undefined, just know I'm talking about reflectors, because a reflector chart is totally and always actually undefined. So this is a reflector chart. All those centers are open. So it's a whole nother story. So just when I say open centers, undefined, that's what I'm talking about. So let's put that back up there. Okay, cool. So when I say the whispering and the hearing, again, the undefined crown just being open to everything that can or cannot happen and just kind of taking it in and experiencing for what it is. It just seems to pop in their head at the oddest times. I kind of function that way. So wherever I go out into the galactic universe, I can find different kinds of inspiration, a bunch of different ways, or even different people, because I'm open all the time. It's like this inner yearning, and just kind of saying that out loud or musing about it. This center being open, it kind of reminds me of Piscean or Pisces characteristics, because your head spins in this, this kaleidoscope of galactic stars just musing through the cosmos of different thoughts and inspiration that actually literally get triggered by other people. And the risk that is happening is that you might be influenced by other people's thoughts, issues, puzzles, etc., and you literally might act upon them. So for me, you end up carrying the flag for actually somebody else or living in their shadow. So a good question to ask yourself if your crown is undefined is, why do I spend so much time thinking about the dilemma or the ideas of other people? That's kind of your choreography. So you want to allow your crown to act like a receiving dish, like a satellite dish, to the thoughts of others. It's telepathy. So it's turning it all around to wisdom streams of thought with actually clarity. So it's like becoming a wise one, a sage. You use this openness to remain wise, again, like a sage. Where the mind, right below the crown, is actually our thinking center. It's filtering all this information that comes in through our crown, always, and actually rationalizing it to reach understanding. So it's like the crown is sending pressure to the mind, kind of like a pressure cooker in the way. It's, everyone's getting a ton of downloads right now. So you have to kind of work it out and massage it in a way to work it out. So this is just actually one of the 3 awareness centers. So the mind is in a permanent state of work in progress. And, it's probably why meditation is actually highly important. And if you're actually new to meditation, my program, Soliciting Solitude, is actually just a great starter to go into the advanced. I have a plethora of awesome meditations in there, whether it's the elements, the centers, all kinds of good juju. But also, just breathing on its own, paying attention to your breath, can actually even be a meditation. But our mind can literally trap us into all these endless loops of positive or negative cycles, just endlessly. So in human design, it relates to the pituitary gland. So it's located more in the front of the brain. So this really is the third eye center too. It's this mystical eye of knowledge or knowingness. So it's the center that literally interprets the inspiration or the downloads to make you see something that you actually need to learn or grasp or some growth if it's defined. So actually that's just how it functions. So if it is defined, this is like your built-in hard drive. It just never stops humming. If you've listened to a computer, it's always processing all this data and backing up all this information. So it literally is like a human computer inside of us. So meditation can definitely quiet our mind, just allowing ourselves to kind of distance from those racing thoughts. But you're logical in your approach and your consistency in just your way of thinking. So you kind of have to balance that out because it's two sides of our mind. Our mind channels imagination and intuition and creativity. And it also is the logical aspect. Like I'm thinking of Spock and Star Trek, the logical channel that I think sometimes gets in the way, but that's just my opinion. So if it's defined, you're the kind of person will approach things the same way every time. If your mind is undefined, like it is today in our show, but you might appear to be too open-minded or maybe absent-minded, like the absent-minded professor. You're forgetful or easily distracted. Keeping a journal or a diary is an awesome thing. Just writing down your thoughts and scribbling whatever it is. It could be light language for all that matters, or just writing down thoughts randomly, whatever that looks like. Excuse me. So Albert Einstein actually had this undefined mind center. So it's just really knowing how to play with it, really, and bringing that reality into the physical. You kind of have a detached objectivity, kind of, you bring in this wisdom of finding clarity in, the complex kind of stories. And just stepping away from a defined mind is literally a better approach. You get this inner sight, really. So you're like letting it come in. So it really is a gift of resolving issues of other people and just able to see the forest, not just the trees in a way. And you can also literally walk into a room and sense what everyone is thinking because you're able to tap into other people's thoughts. So people might even notice that you always know what they're thinking as well. And you might not use your outside voice. I know I do that. I keep my inside voice. I have to like inside sometimes. But the beauty or the magic of this is that you always have a choice. You can be contemplative and you can be still in your awareness when you're alone. Or you can become engaged or even thoughtful when you're with others. So, there's always two sides of the coin, no matter if it's defined or undefined. And then our throat, which is awesome. The throat is expression and manifestation. So right below the mind, we have the throat. That's that little brown square box that's right there. And each of these centers actually have different gates. I'm not going to get into that, or we're going to be here all day. So they each have, a channel that they open up to when I talk about the channels and the gates, and they connect. But this one, it makes, creates, and it makes things happen with all the powers of both manifestation and expression. So it's literally a voice box. It's our main hub center where everything, comes out. Deeds, our dreams, they want to land in reality. So where all these voices literally inside of us strive to be heard on the outside of us. So it's the center where everything literally can happen. So the throat expresses in, a variety of unique and magical ways, whether it's writing, acting, speaking, doing a live show, whatever that is, you're expressing your voice. When people lose their voice, there's an aspect of their throat center that might not be online. Some qualities that are unique are be like shining your light, shining your knowledge, your education, your learning, your growth, whatever that is. So anything that goes on is literally searching and seeking. It's kind of like when a river kind of breaks through the soil, just searching for its outlet or for its expression. So words or action literally are the throat center. And in the body, it rules the thyroid, which, it does in general anyway. All of our energy centers are connected to a gland in our body, and they all have a purpose and a character and all this juiciness. So this is the thyroid and the parathyroid. It regulates our metabolism and also our sense of well-beingness. So literally tuning into your voice or your inner innate nature, just being true to who you are. It's actually one of the keys to access ultimate wellness or well-beingness. So if your throat is defined, this is the power of expression. But how or what is expressed really depends on the other defined centers that feed into it. That would be those gates. So literally all roads on the graph literally lead to the throat. So, it's kind of like all roads lead to Rome. Well, this would be all roads lead to your voice ultimately. So all of these energies literally seek to release or kind of voice out through that center. So it's like a connection with, meaning you're going to speak your mind, or a connection to your emotions where you're going to express your emotions. If it's connected to your heart, you're going to have heartfelt wishes. So all of these centers and their characters actually seek to be voiced through our throat. So when this expression is made, it literally can come through an action, creativity, communication, all of these cool, juicy aspects. So a defined throat center is just constant in their communication and how they communicate. So the voice carries a certain cadence, a tone, a sound, a confidence, a frequency. And we all have this, even if it's undefined, right? But I'm talking about a defined center. So these people are like storytellers. They get insight, education, maybe some strong leadership. But you also might attract people with an undefined throat center, because that's how we balance this out. And that person would talk your ear off. Maybe they have a pent up emotional center and they chatter a lot. They spew on you energetically because they're an imbalanced center in there. So, it's always a polarity of opposites. If the throat is undefined, like all the reflectors out there, right? There's really not that many of us, but in a way there is when you think about all the billions of people on planet Earth. People with an undefined center can't seem to find the right words. I know when I sit in ceremony, I'm really vulnerable and I don't really share a lot of what's going on. I literally have to have the conversation, like to get my indoor voice outdoors. So it's hard to express. And it can be kind of frustrating. So the undefined throat actually turns into a chatterbox to a defined throat because so much is held inside. So you unleash, you might dominate a conversation. Two people can ask the same question and get literally completely different answers in an aspect. So it all depends on literally the company you keep in your village. Silence is golden, the sound of silence, really just learning to literally take a pause or to wait for the right time to say something, whatever that looks like. So wisdom really is silence, and patience is really in the waiting. So just taking in the voice of others and kind of creating your own insight, for me, words also, they carry frequency and vibration. And if you were to think of a sentence or look at a poem and remove one word out of one line in the poem takes on an entirely different meaning, frequency and vibration, all of it. If you were to take a sentence out of every paragraph in a poem, I'm just using a poem as an example, by the way, but I thought about this the other day. If you take about a whole sentence out, then the entire poem shifts its frequency and it's dynamic, right? So that's kind of how we are. Words carry those kinds of powers. So, basically, right? When we take in the voice of others and we create our own inner garden, so you kind of ease your own ability to express who you are, or, it has, again, a lot of to do with who's in your village or circus or who you're interacting with. So same with our ability to actually make things happen and express our inner creativity. That's what happens there. So then we have the center of ourself. The center of ourself, this is like our direction, our sense of purpose, and it's also our love. It's not the heart, but we have love there. So the diamond share, it's like the diamond right there. It's a sideways kind of square looking to me, but whatever. So this is our self. So it's our purpose, it's our direction in life. So it's like this global positioning system. It's our beacon, just aligning with who we are, maybe and where we are, and to guide what we are guided to. It relates to our boundaries. It determines what is or isn't appropriate, who is or isn't appropriate. So boundaries, right? This is where we find the answer of who am I? We just have to have this consistent connection to our soul garden, who we've been to who we are. Those are different derivatives as well. But this is where the energies of love kind of reside in all forms. It could be spiritual love or faithful love, love as an attraction to a physical form, a person, love of humanity, love of the journey through life or living life. So a lot of truths can actually be found in this space. It's related to the liver, which, if you know the liver, right, it's an authority in a way. It's the seat of the soul. It's where our blood literally gets cleansed. It doesn't matter if this center is defined or not. It determines how we filter life in all of our experiences. So if you have a congested liver, this kind of raises our level of having intolerance in life, and it reduces how we connect to life in general. So if your self-center is defined, not that you're self-centered, by the way, you just kind of know who you are, you know where you're going. You seek not to just be yourself, but you want to be your better self, the best self you can possibly be, whatever that looks like. And you really can't, you can't get off your path away from your natural organic sense of who you are or who you're becoming. And if you swim against the tide, I'm thinking of the ocean, the currents. When you swim against the tide, if you're not careful, you could actually look behind and find an entourage of like hanger-oners that are literally dragging you down. I say that feels like the shadows or the ghosts in the darkness. But for you, if this is defined, you really need to stay true to who you ultimately are. And there'll be nothing that actually can stop you on your path, your journey, if you literally stay true to who you are without abandonment, right? But the undefined self, this is where I am. It's who I am right now. I'm undefined, right? So it's just struggling to find a sense of identity. I wear a variety of hats in life because all things to all people, that's kind of who I am. I reflect back to them literally who they are. So in a sense, I'm kind of a chameleon, identifying with every body. But there's this beauty and this flexibility. So it's this just staying in the flow and just feeling into the expression and the frequencies and all the juiciness of people, and just learning to go with the flow and kind of be in the moment and stay away from the conditioning or the influences of someone else. You're determined, you have a purpose or a direction, but it can lead to all sorts of wrong paths. So when you reflect, you literally become kind of like an overseer. I've seen myself lately as an oracle, kind of a guide for other people. So when you need to find consistency to how you live your life, you can draw guidance from other people who literally have this center defined. So I kind of feel into that, and I always am asking my questions, is this me or is this them? Because I have to feel into it and see what I sense. So it's just important that I get my bearings from it's important who I get my bearings from, actually. So, it's like, who do you keep company with or draw guidance from? So people are, generally or hopefully they're personally empowering. If they are, then you have a more fulfilling life. If your village kind of has some hanger-oners, you have issues. I'm telling you, I've been there. So it's just getting swayed by people who are disempowering. So it's great to stay in a higher frequency, obviously a higher vibration. I think that's why I like my hermit alone time, other than that's part of my design as well. But if you do that, if your village is contaminated, is what I should say, you're going to make wrong choices inevitably. But I always think there's a learning curve in a wrong or right choice. Anyway, you have a lesson, and ultimately you have an experience. So there really isn't wrong choices, as far as I'm concerned. Now we're going to move on to the heart. The heart is the center of our willpower and our wishes. It's actually next to the self center. It's that teeny, smaller kind of triangle sitting there. And it balances the willpower with our ego. And it also comes with this competitive kind of streak, to prove a point in a business or, be the top dog in the material world, whatever that looks like. It's also one of the 3 motor centers. It pushes us through life. It's our heart, right? This is where our heart's desires literally get the fuel. And the bigger thing people want to aspire to, this is like a sense of freedom, like in action, our freeness, freedom to choose, just free. It's also, our willpower literally derives us towards this freedom. And our heart expresses willpower in 2 ways. So it's the willpower of the greater galactic universe, and it's also ego driven. So with willpower for, selfish reasons more so. So what do I want to say? All our money matters, all of our money relationship matters actually are processed through our heart. So this filters our material needs and wants as we balance our values. And I filed a bankruptcy, Chapter 13, a long time ago. But for me, and this kind of woke up that space, it was literally needs and wants. And now what's curious is we're in the season of Taurus, which is our values. And Uranus is there right now, transiting. We got 6 more years of that. So our values are literally being tested. So it's almost like God universe, the galactic universe, had me experience that so I could learn needs and wants and values. My soul capital, my derivative, in the galactic corridor. So what happens here is our values of life, if they go against our values of money. So money is just a different form of energy related very closely to our wishes that actually emanate from our heart. So, if you're having issues with creating abundance, we live in a world where money, but that's shifting, by the way. You have to go ask your heart. Are you driving from your ego, or are you driving from the galactic universe, the core of who you are, from your heart? So, this is kind of a melting pot of power, money, prestige, all of that. So, it's just harvesting the good and the gooder of this aspect and not going down the rabbit hole of the delusion of power and money that, we're experiencing right now. In all, in my heart space, I can feel, hear, sense that. So the center is actually related to the organ of the heart, heart disease. I'm always talking about listening to our heart, have those inner heart to heart conversations. It's also our digestive system, the stomach, the gallbladder. So all of these organs actually function at a higher frequency and a vibration optimally. I'm trying to think of the word. So, whatever you tune into with your life, literally naturally, but when your willpower invests in trivial pursuits that are wrong for you, you have the opposite in your flow. So it's actually really rare to have a defined heart center. If you happen to be one of those few people who have a defined heart center, you could literally move mountains as long as you stay in the universal globe of energy over the willpower. You might want to harness the raw willpower. So these people can actually accomplish things like in 5 seconds very quickly, where somebody else it might take them an hour, a decade, a year, whatever. You really are putting your heart into it. You're following your heart. It's your source of all the good juju, courage, where you stand in life. You're just like in your heart's authenticity for transformation and change. You're in the flow. You got your own fire. Like you have it all. So it's really quite magical if it's defined. So for you, if you have this, accomplishments are something never to question because you're just aligning naturally and organically what's truly worth your time and also your energy. Your energy is actually more the issue. So you just have to stay committed to ensure that your heart is fully in it to win it. Like you have to stay on that frequency. So different themes for this center are like standing on your own 2 feet, taking control of situations. But the biggest aspect with this is rest. Rest, and I'm thinking of the balance of being because that's one of the natural resources we have just to bring energy balance, totality to our body. Even if you're not into energy medicine or the chakras and subtle being that we are, rest, authentic rest is actually a huge requirement for a defined heart. Taking a breath and taking a pause, putting your feet up, taking a break, chillaxing, literally taking a pause and a breath. However, the majority of people have an undefined heart, and you can see this out there. You might have a desire to be a powerhouse, but your heart literally isn't designed to do that. So you have nada to prove yourself. You shouldn't compare yourself to others, overcompete, because you end up short and you end up in a struggle of how you actually value yourself. So it's really important to just know that you have zero need to actually prove anything to yourself or to anyone else. I actually kind of have gone through this. It's just interesting how undefined centers kind of they recalibrate. It's way curious. But yeah, you don't have to prove anything to anybody else. If you happen to do that, you're going to end up in like a tug of war between the universe and the ego. So I am like literally putting everything up into the greater universe, into my altar, into the other dimension, because you have your own access to your heart, your wisdom. So you really need to listen to yourself and be good and gooder to your own heart, love yourself more, and literally do it again. Those are the conversations I have with my heart space. I, bow to my own queendom inside of me so I can share that light outside of me, basically. So then we move to the sacral. The sacral is our life force. It's our staying power. It's the second one up from the bottom, the circle there of this life chart, of this graph. It's also called the generator center, the G center. So this is like our engine room. This is where our hum is always getting its power, our life force, this energy. So it literally generates the juice that aims the trees towards the sky. It empowers baby birds to take flight or crack their shell, expand their wings. It also enables us to kind of endure the hardships that are crazy in our life. It's our powerhouse of growth and expansion and, having a journey on the earth plane. But what's really curious is it harnesses an energy that has zero awareness. So it's just seriously raw golden egg power, just ready to unleash its this stored energy. It reminds me of what do I want to say? It's the zones. So we have these different zones. If you haven't tuned into Secrets of the Other World, I also talk about the zones in Change Your Stars, but it's our life energy zone kind of comes through this aspect. So it's actually this stored energy inside of us. It's often even referred to as our sexual energy, our Kundalini energy. And there's two different types of Kundalini energy as well. But it has that undertone, that current inside of it. So it relates to our reproductive organs sitting there, right? So, it's the larger majority of our population actually has a defined sacral. So it's this unstoppable energy. It's sacral, it's sacred, it's sex. All of this is all interlinked. So, staying in the sacred for me, I have a sacred, I want to say rituals that I do, healing aspect. They're total visual most of the time. Sometimes I bring them into the physical. It's just perspective of whatever's happening. But if it's defined, whether you're aware of it or not, you literally have this continuing stream. I call them conscious river streams of this life force energy to like literally draw on or into you. But this motor doesn't actually turn off. It doesn't have a shut off valve or a switch. So once this energy is literally unleashed, there is like no turning back. So this is like the momentum of engagement. It reminds me of like warp speed, the galactic. I'm thinking of like Han Solo. I can't remember the name of his ship. I can see it, but I can't think of the name. But so it's that kind of thing. You're going to go light speed. So you actually have to be really sure about deciding what or who deserves your time and your energy, your beingness. So this is where we get our gut responses. They come in. It's like following your gut. So if something feels wrong, that really is your gut. Not to be confused with our emotions, because you might feel it kind of as a rising or a pulling energy without sound. That's the cool part. It has no tonality, no sound. It's your hair and your goosebumps is what I'm thinking of might come up. So it'll be pulling you to or from someone or something. With this center defined, sex is really your driving force for you. That means that you're just a natural lady killer. You're a seductress. You have that. It feels like a Lilith frequency in a way. Good old Black Moon Lilith. Love her. But you literally have the potential for, having a satisfying sex life if you actually create and make the right connections. You have to take your own personal needs into account first over other people. If you indulge in reckless abandon, this literally steals your life force energy. So you have to listen to your gut first. So if you are lucky though, and have both your heart and your sacral defined, so you have this positive whirlwind of energy. It's like this nonstop go-getter. You're just always in the frequency. You're always in the hum. And you truly, you have to find things that literally you love to do. Like it's like you're this heart beacon going through time and space. So if it's undefined, hello, you just know that you are not meant to live life in the fast lane. So your energy reserves kind of will wear out or burn out. So as an undefined sacral, it's not designed to, live in the fast lane. So just learning to pace yourself, outsource, delegate, when to connect to the energies of others and when to honor your own inner nature and retreat. Yeah, so I've left places because I didn't like the feeling that came up there. So I think that was my sacral kind of awareing me for space and time anyway. Then we have our emotional feeling center. It stirs up our feelings. It's where life swings between happiness and sadness, our pain or our passion, even our guilt and forgiveness. Like that's kind of what happens here. So here, if yours is defined or even undefined, actually, you just kind of always have to have that conversation where I am connected. So of all of the 9 centers, this is the one that's actually the most intense because of what it arouses inside of us. It's unique in its aspect and its design because it's also one of those 3 awareness centers and one of the 3 motor centers. So it's got these 2 magnetic poles kind of going on, right? Polarities. So there's always this perpetual kind of balancing going on. It's a balancing act between awareness and literally the drive to act and accomplish. So it's like you're always frequenting the outer frequencies, but yet you're still in the physical dimension, kind of merging the two. So the organ it's associated with is our pancreas, our kidneys, lungs, stomach, and even our nervous system. So emotions are just so hugely powerful. They can, I've even experienced this. They can turn us off to food, or they can take us on binge eating. The pain that you're feeling or sensing can lead to problems in your nervous system. So it also is actually associated with addictions of sex, alcohol, food, shopping, drugs, whatever it is, either prescribed drugs or unprescribed. Works on both levels. Smoking, it's all these things. And they all kind of play out in other centers anyway, energetically. That's a whole nother tangent I could go on. So it's actually pretty complex, really. And emotions are really complex, right? Because very rarely do we ever tune into our emotional state of awareness and have those inner baby conversations, just addressing and having a conversation with our emotions like we do with our heart. So if your emotions are defined, you're a feeling person. So you might be the life and the soul of a party 1 minute and literally down in the dumps the next. You can be flying high, or you can be flying down in the dumps, flying low. So you're here to experience the entire spectrum of feelings, and feelings are huge. I think they're the largest state of awareness, actually, when I think about feelings, right? And emotions, if you think about it, they never sit still long at all. They're like the ocean, rolling like the waves, rising and falling. So or a volcano erupting inside of you. I have to, organize the chaos of my emotions because of the feelings that come through. And I don't want to take out the globe. It's kind of what I want to say. But you want to capture the moment of like what it feels like inside of you, whether you're feeling happy or you're feeling love or you're feeling positive energy or higher vibrations, or if you're sad, wondering when the sadness is going to end. So when you just recognize those emotional waves, that roller coaster of what they feel and they sense like, just, you have to allow them just to kind of pass through. That's kind of an access point or a key to that. You also might trigger other people's emotional roller coaster as well, because emotions are very contagious, right? Have you ever been with a bunch of people and all of a sudden somebody starts laughing like so loud you start laughing? It's because it's the flow. Laughter is like, it shifts our frequency and our vibration actually quite quickly. If this center is undefined, however, you probably would consider yourself an emotional person. You're probably literally riding that emotional wave of other people just through transmission, right? It's transcendent, it's flowing, it's moving. If you laugh, they cry, you cry. So your emotions are actually triggered by other people. So you, when you're alone, are cool, you're calm, you're collected. For me, I'm taking a pause for peace. Like I'm literally stroking myself in my pause zone. What tends to happen is you get caught in other people's emotional waves and frequencies, and then you step outside of like your personal sacred garden, your own sacred sphere. If you've tuned into the Buttercup meditation, that's like step 1 in a way. But people with this center undefined, they really have the hardest time just allowing themselves to feel into emotions. So if you're not comfortable in your own skin, this can really mess with your true inner nature, because you're like in this whirlwind of emotions of everyone around you. It's like being literally in a windstorm or tornado air, emotions flowing through the air, whether those emotions are healthy or toxic. So you really have to remain aware and kind of watchful of the frequency and the flow. Or maybe another way to put it, because this is if you're a defined emotional center, you're in the seas kind of flipping and around like crazy waves. That's what these emotions kind of could be. But if you are someone on the shoreline just observing, you can either like dive in and magnify the emotions, or you can stay out of the sea altogether and just reflect back to those people what is shifting and actually how to release all the drama about it, whatever that looks like. And the spleen, so the spleen is, this is another center of the three awarenesses, the three awareness centers. So it has its own survival mechanism, and it actually has its own feel-good space that actually radiates within it. It's highly sensory, purely a survival space. It's like, I call it an alert system. It's like my radar gets bing, bing, bing. This is interesting because this is where our fears can actually be triggered. So it's the fear of not knowing enough, the fear of the future, fear of the past, fearing of taking on responsibility, fear of failing, fear of death, fear of authority. So just when you recognize fear as an internal alert system, and also the limitations of the fear, Saturn energy, this is kind of what it feels like to me. So this gives us those survival and feel amazing in the moment kind of thing, good and gooder. I feel great, I feel better, whatever. It's also spontaneity, and it's also intuition. So it has its own frequency acoustic. I'm seeing an orchestra. It has that kind of quality to it. It's like a voice, a vibe. It's clairaudient. It relates to our entire immune system in our body. And just with, the globe right now, I can feel into this uniquely. So it's like tackling all the foreign debris, viruses. So it's interesting to wonder who or what is the emotion going on with the virus in general, and also if this center is defined or undefined. So I might just muse about that in general, but if it is defined, you're spontaneous, you're highly intuitive, you're designed to react to life on like the spur of the moment, or you're just always on your toes. You glow, you light up, you're like a beaming light radiating a room just with your beingness. What's also cool is just scanning the environment and sense any threats or any discourse, just always sensing the good or the bad. You're like in the frequency, you're in the zone, right? So it's kind of a curious mix of having an alert bodyguard. I'm like seeing my guardian, or being a healer, like a highly attuned healer in the frequencies, right? So there's brightness and also a sense of humor. There's laughter as medicine. We all know that. And just paying attention to your senses, what you feel and what you sense. But the moment you disengage, your intuition, your instinct, or even your taste, your senses try to warn you. So the moment that you smell discourse, you literally get an alert signal. That kind of happens for me, but it doesn't always mean danger. It just means it doesn't fit within your nature, who you are, your beingness. So it's good to listen to those signs or those signals. And if you are in the wrong environment, what happens? It can lead you to become sick. Actually, that's kind of what it does, because your immune system is actually at a sink. So your natural beingness, your natural reflexes come easily with, the click of your fingers. You're like an antenna, like a nervous Nelly. You're just in tune with the frequencies. I think journaling for this would be awesome as well. Just being aware. So the spleen by nature is actually fearful. So a defined spleen always tends to mean a strong immune system as well. So if you're constantly sick, it really might be that you're ignoring your intuitive senses. You don't want to tune into the frequency, which is actually curious. On the opposite side, an undefined spleen is actually pretty curious too, because fears don't elude you. You might get triggered. You mirror somebody else's fears. So there's a tendency for somebody's fears to actually get magnified, which is hilarious for me as a reflector. Undefined, I've noticed on some of, if I comment on different Facebook posts or I post something, I can recognize the triggers and the fears with what people are commenting, because words carry vibration, right? So they get magnified. And, you have to tune into coming from a space of compassion for those people in all actuality and bring that compassion to reality. Just making your fears your friends or your allies, not your enemy. Challenge your fears. It's being conscious of them and shifting that perspective of the fear. So fear of authority, turn that into wisdom. It's the position, not the person, that carries the power. It's all perspective. So it's literally shifting this perspective of the fear. And I really like to challenge my fears, because wisdom innately will grow by shifting and changing the perspective. It's transformation. Like, I had a hell of a time trying to figure out seeing myself on camera and videos. Go look at 3 years ago what my videos looked like compared to now. I'm in the 0 zone, right? Neutrality. So people, and this is true for me, you tend to have if this is undefined, you're going to be sensitive to drugs. Even if you're not taking the drug, you can pick up on the frequency. So my boundaries, I'm always having to shore up my borders, basically. Prescriptions, they take their toll on my beingness. I can't take meds, whether they're recreational or prescribed. It's absolutely a thing for me. It has the opposing effect. My channels run backwards. I swear they do. It's really a thing. So that's why I work a lot with oils and herbs, light, sound, etc. Otherworldly stuff, because it works better for me. Also know if you have an undefined sacral or spleen, you have a sharpened, your psychic abilities are like sharp, because you're always open and reflecting the intense undercurrents of life around you. I know this because I've been doing it for the past year. Has been kind of intuitively kind of rough, but a lot of mediums and clairvoyants have this center undefined. So they pick up signals emitting off of others, right? We carry this frequency. So I'm literally in the other world sometimes, shifting my channel that I'm subscribing to just to stay above. Okay. So last but not least, I've been yapping for a bit here. Really seriously, is the root center. So the root is the drive of it all. It literally sits at the bottom of the chart. It's our launch pad for all of our activity. It houses our adrenals, and it's even it processes our stress. So we've learned to succumb to stress as like part of our everyday beingness. Well, we really have to clean out the cupboards of stress, and dive into the stressors. So it's the second of those two pressure centers. It's the crown is the first, and then the root. So, it's these polarities inside of us and between us. So it's the pressure to act. I am. Ambition is actually one of those characteristics that are there. And you'll notice the root has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, has the 9 gates. So each of these gates down here at the base, at the root, they have a characteristic. So it could be joyfulness, stillness, limitation, imagination, restlessness. So each of those gates, when I talk about the gates, have one of those emotional qualities. So each of those gates carries a characteristic, or I want to say a choreography, or, they get in the flow. And again, it relates to our adrenal glands. So it's stimulating them either to give us a rush or make us a junkie in a way. So stressaholics, people that thrive on stress, that's a thing. If it's defined, it means that you can handle a lot of pressure to actually perform. You have your own inner gauge. It's like your gas in the car, full tank, empty gas. Whether, you can look at a time frame or a goal and know if it's attainable, or you can master it without losing your balance, your frequency. So it's an intense drive, or it can be a volcano. of energy bursting. It can erupt at any moment in space and time. So your natural state of being, you're the eye of the hurricane. You're like the eye of the storm. So you find calm within the chaos, even though you're thriving on an adrenaline rush. So you've mastered the storm or the chaos in the storm, just, handling stressful situations and learning not to jump into something wrong, like wrong pursuits or situations. When you do that, it'll literally, you'll flip your switch. It reminds me of in my cowrie shell divinations when something's on its side, you're balanced, and that's kind of where the world is right now. Our world is literally off balance, and this can take you off balance. So it's better to just stay in ambitions that are actually true to your heart and worthwhile, goals that are of a higher frequency, the whole, not just the self. So if it's undefined, the natural state of this center when you're alone is actually to be relaxed, unbothered, just going through life at your own pace and your own frequency and your own vibration. And the problem here is what starts to happen is you kind of get sucked into this vortex of the outer world, the outside world, and you start experiencing stress that actually you're energetically not designed to handle at this frequency. So you might turn into a serial procrastinator. Somebody gets things done last minute. Maybe you always run late. You kind of have to recognize your pressure when it's coming at you and just beware inside of yourself that most of it isn't yours. So stay calm, stay centered, stay true to your inner being. And if you end up constantly getting wrapped up in the stress of other people, you then actually end up, this is where exhaustion of your adrenal glands comes in. So you have to find tranquility in your pause and your peace. Again, I would totally say practice meditation as your inner natureness. Get grounded. It's the root. Ground into the earth star, the vortex, the 10th star, with all these names, right? Anyway, thanks for tuning in today. I know this was kind of a long, but however, I'm still going to do the moon gates on Saturday. And so, those lines, when I talk about the gates, those are the gates. And each one goes from time and space and time. And I'm also hoping to get more in line with my own flow doing this. And also remember, there's no blockbuster this Sunday because it's the day of the goddess. I'm going to tune into that frequency. So yeah, InSHalla and Ashe. I hope that was informative. It was for me as an undefined reflector. So that was super cool. Okay, I'll see you on the other side.